Let's have a nice cup of TRE in the afternoon with Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Stefaan van Hooydonk. He is founder of the Global Curiosity Institute. His new book, Curiosity, The Secret Ingredient for Success in Personal and Professional Growth, describes the ins and outs of curiosity, what it is, how it works, and what it does. The book is a practical guide for professionals to help them become aware of and take intentional action towards being more curious towards the world, others, and even themselves. Welcome to the show, Stefaan.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for having me. This is going to be exciting.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. So let's go back to basics then. Can you just explain exactly what curiosity is?
Well, there's a lot of definitions going out there. My definition is the mindset to challenge the status quo that leads them to learning, exploration, and discovery. So it's about mindset. Mindset means intentionality, means action, and challenging the status quo is never being happy with what you know or your relationships, or assuming they can get even better, and also not knowing yourself. And so it's always being searching for breaking that status quo and exploring the new.
I think some people, or maybe children, are more likely to be, I don't know, change as they grow up. I think children, when they're really young, are generally curious as they're finding out about the world and how to speak and how to walk and all this kind of thing. But then as we grow older, we're developing personalities, and some children can become less curious. I think it's one of those things that some people are throughout all of their lives and some people aren't. And then the people who aren't can obviously learn to be more curious, can decide to become more curious.
Absolutely. Now, there's a small caveat to this, Anna. Actually, kids and adults, research has shown, are equally curious. The only difference is that adults are not always ready to action or to lean into their curiosity. They have the same questions, but they just don't know, or are afraid, or they're too stressed, or they're not ready to, or they think they know it already, and they're not ready to really lean into their questions and to their curiosity, and they often take things for granted. But you're absolutely right. It's much more obvious with kids than it is with adults.
And you see all the time when just discussing anything that's going on in the world or discussing history, things that have already happened. If people don't know the answer to something, some people will really want to find out straight away, and others just shrug their shoulders and go, yeah, I don't know. And that's the end of the discussion, because some people need to find out and want to know the answer to a question that they don't know, and others seemingly don't really care.
Absolutely. Now, it's actually quite interesting that you need to know already something in order for you to be curious. If you don't know anything about something, then you can't ask any questions. For instance, if I've never heard about black holes in space, those two words, black and holes, I'm not able to ask any meaningful questions about it. And the more I know about it, the more I read about it, the more I go on YouTube, or the more I kind of read books, I can become more curious about it. But I need this initial information. So, to your example, it might be that the other person is not just doesn't have any knowledge about that specific thing, and therefore just couldn't be bothered. And moves his or her attention to something else immediately.
So how are you relating curiosity to work? Because the book, I know it talks about curiosity in general, but we're talking a lot in a work sense and in business.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question, because in many cultures and in many also work cultures, curiosity is frowned upon a little bit as being too fluffy or being too non-business-like, because we're all about serious things here, in the office. We're all about efficiency, and we're all about kind of rational and good things. Now, with my book and also my first book, when I'm trying to get curiosity out in the open, more and more leaders I'm talking to are telling me that the tricks of the past are not really going to help us 100% towards the future. Because things are just changing too rapidly and things are being disrupted all the time. Let's think about AI just recently and COVID before that, and many other things. There's so many things that are happening around us that we don't have prescribed scenarios for or prescribed solutions for. And more leaders are telling me, and I'm also finding it out through my own research, that we have to develop this new skill, i.e. leaning into this uncertain future and not only relying on all the things that we're good at and the kind of word that has brought us here, but also kind of look at the future and explore this next thing. And it's always a little bit scary, or it could be a bit scary, because we know the past, but we don't know the future. We don't know if I'm opening this door versus the other door, whether this is going to lead to something good.
Yeah, I think AI is a perfect example. I'm sure everybody can relate to hearing people say things like, "Oh, I don't understand AI. We don't need AI. I don't want robots taking over my life." And that's the end of discussion. You know, they don't understand it, don't want to know more, and just decide that no, it's a bad thing. It's a negative thing. And other people who are saying, "Well, you know, what does it mean? How can we use it to our advantage? There must be some good points to it," and are actually doing some research into it and finding it can be quite useful and quite a positive thing if used the right way.
Absolutely, or even be even more confirmed in their thinking that AI is not a good thing. That's also fine. But at least they're leaning in and they're learning and they're open to, and they're also exploring the other side of the coin, which requires intentional energy, because it's much easier to go with the flow and to brush it off as something that's not really relevant, AI in this case, and it's much harder to stop and to zoom in and to start reading about it and to explore some and to talk to some people, you know, and to look at some videos in order to build your database, to build your knowledge and make up your mind afterwards. Maybe interesting in this discussion is, for me, the opposite of curiosity is conformity. And conformity is all about keeping. Curiosity is all about seeking. And with keeping and conformity is sticking to what you know, sticking to your status quo, sticking to what you think about your relationships, taking the other people for granted, type of a thing. And through that lens, I often kind of encourage people to ask of themselves, where am I situated, say in my private space or in my professional space? Am I more on the side of curiosity or more on the side of conformity, knowing that the midpoint is the best point. It's not an either or situation. It's an and. Mm-hmm. We need to still deliver the same type of products to our customers and of same high quality as yesterday. But if we're not ready to innovate and explore and discover new things and better things, we're going to be what I call a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
A company that does one thing well, and then after a while they just get swallowed or get bypassed by somebody else.
Yeah. Is there a similarity, do you think, between curiosity and open-mindedness?
Absolutely. And open-mindedness and growth mindset, they're all kind of sitting in the same bucket, in the same cylinder. Curiosity absolutely requires open-mindedness. And maybe the analogy to kids might be an interesting one earlier, what you mentioned, is that kids are curious from a reactive perspective, because that's their way of learn about the world around them, because they don't know how the world works. They don't know what hot means. Therefore, they're ready to kind of poke their finger in a hot stove just to experience the sensation of hot. And once they do, they know, and they'll never do it again. While for adults, it's really a proactive stance. It's a proactive strategy where people have to let go of their conformity mentality, because it's so much more comfortable to be conformist, and to lean into their curiosity. With that, for instance, a good example is, let's think about the last, or let's think about, if you want to go to a new restaurant or to a restaurant, would you rather go to the same restaurant you've been to before, or a restaurant that you know is good? Or would you like to choose a completely new restaurant that you have no clue about? Interesting, most people go to the same restaurant that they know is good. And even more interesting is that they often order the same food.
I was going to say that, yeah.
because it feels good, and the energy that we have to exert to select something new, which might not be as good as the food that I know, is exhausting. Now, on the other side, we also might be foregoing something that is remarkably better. But we often don't go there, because we're, again, conformity and staying in my status quo zone feels just so much better. And the same could be said for companies.
Yes. Yeah, I see what you mean. You can use the analogy for any part of your life, can't you, really, when you start thinking about it? The same with friends. You know, we get comfortable spending time with the same group of friends or the same people. You know, if we enjoy their company, we enjoy being with them, we don't generally feel the need to go out and look for new friends, because we're happy with the friends that we've got. But often, if we do end up finding new friends, it's not about replacing the old friends necessarily, but you can find that there are other lovely people out there, and you can create new friends that are just as enriching as the friends you've had for a long time. Absolutely,
or they might even add a new layer to your being that the other friends haven't been.
Yeah,
haven't been doing. Absolutely, no. You're absolutely in office environments. It's also true. Most of the people have lunch with the colleagues, and they have every day the lunch with the same type of people. and I encourage people, often say once every week or once every 2 weeks, just try to meet another person. And in an extreme case, the Abraham Lincoln is thought to have said, "I don't like that person. I need to get to know him better." And it's interesting, when you don't know somebody, we have two strategies. Either we blame the other person for not being likable, or when we don't like a person, we blame the other person, which most of us do. Or we can do something like Abraham Lincoln did, to say, okay, maybe I can learn something about that person, and maybe in the process about myself. And that's what I'm suggesting often, and people laugh at me for suggesting it, is that in the office, try to have a cup of coffee with the person that furthest away from you in terms of thinking, in terms of background, in terms of anything you can think about, or even more extreme, the person that you like the least in the office. And I promise you that you can learn something remarkably about that person by kind of being open, because you asked the question about open-mindedness, by being curious and being open-minded. But at the same time, you'll also learn something about yourself.
Yeah, I like it. I was thinking about different things that we might enjoy with regards to reading books or watching television programs or watching films, having a certain mindset, like I don't like sci-fi, for example, and then making yourself watch a really popular sci-fi film that loads of people like, just to test it, just to test the water, instead of going through your whole life saying I don't like sci-fi and never reading a sci-fi book, never watching a sci-fi film because you tried it once 30 years ago and didn't like it and decide that you don't like the whole genre. Again, we do that all the time, don't we, with books and films and things.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's a great example of conformity. Again, staying with what I know, keeping in the same small world that I've been used to, what I feel comfortable with. One example could be next time you go to a bookstore, buy the book next to the book you want to buy. And to your point, exactly, kind of lean into something new, and maybe you'll be able to learn something, and maybe not, but at least you're making the effort, and in most cases, it's going to be something remarkable.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about life, isn't it? Being curious and realizing how big the world is and how much there is out there to learn and find out about. And I think it's very sad, I guess, people who aren't curious are missing out on so much.
Absolutely, yeah. The world is such a beautiful place. Our neighbors are such beautiful people. I am such a beautiful individual, and you are, and everybody. And it's a pity that we walk around sometimes with a set of spectacles on, which prevents us from looking beyond. And for instance, while talking about reading books. Maybe the people on the show maybe asking themselves the question: am I reading more books on holidays, or am I reading books more in the rat race of everyday life, when I have to go to the office, take care of the kids, and sit in traffic and God knows what? And most people start laughing then and said, of course, when I'm on holidays, I'm more inclined to explore. I'm more inclined to be open-minded, and it hides also a little bit of fact that curiosity needs time and space. And if even in the rat race of our everyday life, we have an opportunity to actually create that space and to carve out time and saying, well, this is going to be my day of curiosity. I'm working together with a beautiful lady, Claire Inkster, and she has declared her Thursdays to be Curious Thursdays. So on Thursdays, for the rest of the week, she knows she has to work and she has to do all kind of things. But on Thursdays, she's decided for herself that she's going to do other things. And on Thursdays, for instance, she's exploring AI type of new tools, or she's going to a museum or a pottery class, or she has meetings with people in the oddest of places, like parks and places that she just thinks up. And I think it's a great example for really creating that time and space and inviting curiosity into your daily life, because I could promise you, the more you zoom into curiosity, the more it becomes abundant.
Yeah. And the more exciting it becomes, and the more you want to do it, I suppose. I was just thinking about holidays and how some people will go to the same place on holiday year after year, again, because they're comfortable, they know the place, they like the restaurants, they'll go to the same restaurants, and the guy in the restaurant will recognize them, and it's a lovely feeling, it's all familiar. But again, the reality of how big the world is, and how, there could be a favorite place that you go back to, maybe every other year or every 3 to 4 years. But the rest of the time, try new places. There's so many amazing places to visit. Even in the same country, you could just go to a town a little bit up the road instead of the same place every single time.
Well, there's so many truths to what you're saying. Indeed, your locality, you don't have to fly to Thailand or to faraway countries to explore something beautiful, because things just around the corner, there's so much to explore. To your example of just changing, there is some advantage of going back to the same places, because you can get to know people and you can go deeper into the realities there, and you can learn. So I wouldn't completely disregard it. Again, we need both curiosity and conformity. But at the same time, we have to be open to exploring new places and just doing that. And going on holidays, it's often interesting to think about, what did I do when I was a young kid? Did my parents take me all the time to the same place, or not? because often we're unconsciously reliving the habits and the routines that have been passed on to us by previous generations, and we're often not aware of them.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, you speak to people of a certain generation, and they'll often tell you that their childhood holidays were the same caravan park or the same area time and time again. And they don't necessarily see it as a negative thing. You know, it was a fun family experience going to the same place. So yeah, very often they will think, oh, I must do that with my kids, because they associate it with being a lovely memory. And incidentally, my parents, we always went somewhere different. So there we go. I have that in me, that I'm excited about exploring new places all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. You're right. And it's just talking about it. And I hope that just having this conformity versus curiosity, and also the dimension of world, others, and self, because the curiosity is not only about being curious about the world and about travel and new places, but it's also important when thinking about others, the people that we live with, the people that we work with, even strangers in our street or in our city. How much are we ready to lean into them and to be open? You know, most couples, when they, hopefully nobody divorces, but when couples divorce, they hardly ever divorce or they separate because of fighting with each other. Most couples, they divorce because they feel a certain level of boredom. In the beginning, we're all interested to we can't wait to see the other person, you know, in the beginning of the relationship, and we're all we want to spend a lot of time with each other. And after a while, we take the other person for granted, and we don't realize that the other person has also changed, because we change every day. We have new experiences all by himself, and it's so important to keep that curiosity also in the relationship. Because that's the way to keep your relationship fresh and alive and exciting, and so curiosity is also very important for relationships, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to the work thing, it can be so easy when even if we're naturally curious people in other aspects of our life, sometimes at work, depending on the kind of job people have, you're just there to get on with work. And sometimes you feel like you're too busy to be curious, because you just want to be there, get on with what you need to do. Maybe you haven't got the support in the office environment or the time to feel like you can be curious, and you just want to get the task completed and go home.
Absolutely. Now, one of the biggest detractors of curiosity is indeed stress. Because when we're stressed, we're often not ready to look at the world from a different perspective. We just want to get bogged down and just get the work done, you know? And that's already an awareness trigger for me, because a lot of people don't know what stresses them, what uplifts them versus what stresses them. And just thinking about it, in which situations do I feel more anxious and more stressed and less ready to lean into this curiosity, in which situations, and we all have those situations, are more conducive for me being open. And once we start knowing this, we naturally will kind of look for those moments more, and maybe even in more routine-like jobs. It's known that some people can make them really interesting.
Yeah.
In creating all kind of stories, you know, or many other strategies that people can use to make work really worthwhile and curious.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a fabulous subject to dive into. And if listeners want to do that more, they can definitely, if they're curious, they should get a copy of your book. It's called, it's called Curiosity, the Secret Ingredient for Success in Personal and Professional Growth. It's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Stefaan van Hooydonk, who we've been chatting with today. Stefaan, thank you so much for joining us. Been lovely to chat.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. You're a great person.
Ah, so are you.